probably the most horrible thing is getting out of the military, not because you're just leaving your friends, but some people view you as worthless. Like, oh, he's no good to me, he's getting out. It's like, oh, you're gonna get your shoulder fixed? Well, that's all you're gonna do when you get out. You're gonna spend the next year getting your body fixed? Well, yeah, you've been wrecking it for 19 years, and what's gonna happen when you get out?
Welcome, everybody, again to the Military Retirement Podcast. We are back at you with another Marine. We have Victor as the co-host. I wish he was here today, but we are joined by retired Major Eric Dominijanni.
Hey,
you'll see the spelling in the title or in the thumbnail, so you'll understand. But thank you for reaching out, and thank you for coming on the show and spending time with us today.
Not a problem. Been an absolute pleasure to be here, John.
And luckily, I didn't butcher your name, so we're good.
No, we're good. Yeah, I'm used to it. 50 somewhat years of people butchering my name. It's nothing new.
Right. What did people call you if they weren't able to pronounce your last name? What did they call you?
I had three. D, which is simple. Dom. Most of my military friends call me Dom because we usually go by our last names. Mm-hmm. And my call sign, believe it or not, was Disco in the Marine Corps.
Nice.
Yeah, my mom was a dance instructor, so I kind of inherited that genetically. So I was Disco 6 when I was the boss.
Nice. I like that. Disco. Did you ever bring out like the blonde wig and like the high heels and anything like that?
Afro
like
in my case. Afro in my case. But yeah, that's actually all still in my closet. People thought it was costume clothing. I'm like, this is what I wear on a Friday night when I go dancing. This is not even costume clothing for me.
It's my uniform.
Yeah, pretty much. My off-work uniform.
Awesome. So let me swing to the beginning, like coming into the military, where you were, what time it was, what your mindset was, and what was kind of the trigger that allowed you to then raise your right hand and then say, okay, I'm ready to do this. Let's go.
All right. If I go way, way back, we're talking elementary school, and I know we don't want to go that far back, but I was a nerd. I was just lucky to be an athletic nerd. I grew up reading books on ancient Greek mythology. I grew up reading King Arthur, things like that, and I wanted to be a knight. That's just the best way to describe it. My whole value-based system, my whole system is based on Bushido, the samurai code of conduct for warriors, Arthurian, knighthood. That's just my reason to be, if you will. And in fact, I remember being in elementary school where we had to write about someone who impressed us in life, and my friends would talk about Babe Ruth. They were talking about this person, all these people that are a great baseball player, great hockey player. I wrote about Alexander the Great. I'm like, how do you compare Babe Ruth? No offense, he's a great baseball player, but how do you compare him to Alexander the Great? Like, this is who you aspire to be like? If you want to be a great baseball player, go be a great baseball player. But that's kind of like setting your level, that your aspiration's kind of low, if you will. The bar is very low. I'm trying to be a guy who, I'm aspiring to a guy who at 19 years old conquered the known world or inherited the known world and, passed away, I think 34 years old, something along those lines. But, that's what led to my, the way I guess I molded myself, if you will. So even if I never thought I was going to go in the military. I was really heavily into martial arts, very heavily into discipline, very heavily into athletics. I used to play Dungeons and Dragons when I was a kid. I have to be the knight. I have to be the paladin. I have to be the cavalier. I can't be the rogue. I can't be the wizard. They just don't do anything for me. So, fast forward to college. I was at NYU. And I bit off more than I can chew, or at least my parents did, or both of us. I couldn't afford going there. And I was going part-time. It was hellacious. I couldn't even feed myself. I was living off of ramen if I was lucky, and pizza crust that my friends would leave in the box. And I would, they'd put it in the garbage when they were gone. I'd literally eat all the pizza crusts. My really, really good friends, they allowed me to crash on their floor in their dorm. And they'd bring home food every day for me. I owe them to this day everything. And I talk to them regularly. I always thank them to this day, 30 years later somewhat. But I started looking into the military because I just have this thing about I have to go to school. It was ingrained in me. It was drilled in me. But you have to go to college. You have to go to college. You want to make yourself a better person. And I wound up realizing I couldn't afford school anymore. and I thought about joining the military for the sake of the educational benefits, which is a hilarious story. Um, I was almost done, and I was so close to graduating, but I just couldn't afford it. So I was looking into it, and I started kind of getting mesmerized by it. And the more you look and you read the books and the pamphlets, the uniforms, I just didn't know what service I wanted to join. And nothing against the Navy, but I walked in and I was talking to the Navy, and I was like, yeah, and I took a practice ASVAB, and I had like a perfect score. And he's like, oh my God, he's like, what do you want to do? He's like, like, what about submarines? And what about, it's like, no, I just want to be a medic. I didn't know what a corpsman was. And I just wanted to be a medic. And he's like, no, you can't be a medic. Cause I was pre-med in college. So I figured I'd use this and use it to, make my career, and get into the medical field. And he's like, no. And I was an EMT also. It's like, you want to be a submarine, an avionics tech? I'm like, no, I just really, really want to be a medic. And I was like, will I be in the field? No, you won't be in the field. And it's like, you're going to be in the hospital. It's like, what's military life? Oh, you won't even know you're in the military. Like, he actually was not giving me the information I wanted to hear. I wanted to get dirty and climb trees and shoot. And I was like, this is just not me. And I walked out, and I'll never forget, there's a guy in dress blues. Like, when I walked out, I guess his office was right next to the Marine recruiters. And when I walked out, the Marine recruiter just popped out, like just boom, and hands on his hips. And he was like, do you think you have what it takes to be a United States Marine? And I'm like, what? Like, do you know who I am? I'm the captain of the track team. I've been doing Kung Fu since I was 7 years old. I run marathons. Give me that freaking thing and I'll sign it right now. And I heard, then he found that I had, college. He said he forwarded me to be an officer instead. And I guess he had contacted a friend of mine who said, oh, they got you hook, line, and sinker. Like, that's the recruiting strategy for like that alpha male aggressive type, that completely got me. I actually didn't wind up joining the Marine Corps immediately. I wound up getting a scholarship. I transferred schools. I wound up getting a scholarship. I was working on cadavers for like a year. I did very, very well in the sciences. And then after I graduated, then I went to officer candidate school and did 20 years in the Marine Corps as an assault amphibian officer, which is in Army speak, that would be like amphibious mechanized infantry. Mm-hmm. That's the best way to describe it. And loved it. I loved just about 99% of my time in the Marine Corps. I'm glad I made the decision to join the military. Very, very glad.
What was the 1% of the military that you didn't like? You said 99% you completely enjoyed. What was the 1% that you didn't enjoy?
It was probably a little bit more than 1%. That I didn't fit in with many of my peers. There was a saying, nothing against the Marine Corps, I still love it, but it's made of people, and people, are fallible, if you will. So they used to call, when I first joined the Marine Corps, a lot of people used to call it United, what did they call it? United Southern Male Christians. And it was really, really odd because, I was a New Yorker. I come from a very ethnically diverse background. I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. My first girlfriend was Buddhist. My best friend was Muslim. I was Catholic. And I started seeing people who were not from, let's say, an urban environment like that. We ate different food. Some of my peers were just less accepting of, oh my God, he's Lutheran. We don't talk to Lutherans. Like what century are you living in? And that was the first bad taste I had in my mouth. I found it repulsive, actually. I'm not saying the whole Marine Corps was like that, but it was very, I wouldn't even say it was common. It's just that it was the norm that you were going to be in a room with a person who might have been Mormon, for example, and would get mad at you or get offended that you drank Coca-Cola in front of him. And where I'm like, I'll eat pork in front of my Jewish friends and they don't get offended. So why, if you don't have to drink the Coca-Cola, or you don't have to go to this guy's church, or whatever. So that was like the one thing. And again, that's not the whole Marine Corps, this is, just my experience. The other part that kind of got to me was towards the end. I lived, if you read comic books, you might be aware of a guy named Peter Parker, and he's from Forest Hills, Queens, where I'm from. In fact, he's supposed to be from 108th Street, where I'm from. Apparently, according to the comics, he lives on the other side of my block, the fictional character. Right. But his a really great philosopher named Ben Parker had a saying, with great power comes great responsibility. And that was what I grew up with. That was like, tattooed in my skull, if you will. emblazoned in my heart. And I found that not everyone, there's only onesies, twosies, but that's all it takes, where they got the saying wrong. With great responsibility comes great power. And I've seen people abuse that power, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. If you fight back, you might win, but you lose in the long run. And I've been the victim of that a couple of times. Not just me. I've seen other people. We had, probably the most horrible boss I've ever met. He was a clone of Captain Sobel from Band of Brothers, and that's how we all related to the guy. And he was proud to be like that guy. So that was just, I still have nightmares about that guy, believe it or not. And that's and the other one. I mean, I know we're going to get around to this. It's during your transition. Probably the most horrible thing is getting out of the military, not because you're just leaving your friends, but some people view you as worthless. Like, oh, he's no good to me. He's getting out. It's like, oh, you're going to get your shoulder fixed. Well, that's all you're going to do when you get out. You're going to spend the next year getting your body fixed. Well, yeah, you've been wrecking it for 19 years, right. And what's going to happen when you get out? And I've actually was in a situation where my boss was getting mad at me because I had, I had to get my Achilles tendon attached and the bone spur removed, and I was looking at shoulder surgery and neck surgery, all this stuff from proud physical abuse, but it catches up to you, and he got really upset that he wasn't gonna be able to use me, and he wound up retiring a little bit earlier for other reasons, and he was right behind me, a week behind me, and I was like, oh, so it's okay for you to go to medical, but it wasn't okay for me. So that is the worst. Combat was easy. Combat is the greatest thing. If you're a ground pounder, if you're a combat arms guy, you want to go to Iraq. You want to go to Afghanistan. It's a test, and you're not just punching the bag anymore at the gym. You're actually going up against an opponent. But the problem with that is when you come home and then all of a sudden you're like, you're speeding 4 miles over the speed limit, and they treat it the same penalty was as if you had a DUI. Right. And you're like, you can't relate to that anymore, to being a civilian, So, yeah. So that's that was the maybe 3-4% of the Marine Corps that I could not stand.
Yeah, it's really, you actually brought up a couple of really, really good points, and I kind of want to dig into them because that's the nature of the show, and it just goes off in different directions sometimes. Dealing with people, whether you're still in service right now, or you are already out, transitioned out, or you're in the process of transitioning out, or you've been out for 5 or 10 years, you're always going to encounter people like that. I think, I think that's a pretty fair judgment. Yep. But I kind of want to tie it back to, like, as you mentioned, the Greek and Roman history, the philosophies, even the comic book philosophies that kind of stem from a lot of those Greek and Roman stories, I think, because, everything is not brand new. Things are just repurposed over time, right, over centuries. So a lot of those old stories are just revisited and brought back to life in newer forms, whether it's a comic book, a movie, or, a manuscript or something like that. The fact that what your supervisor said was so impactful, and so it just cut really, really deep, and then turned around and did the exact same thing that you were doing, got out of the service. I think it's just one thing to just keep in the back of mind as you're getting ready to transition, going through transition, already out of transition, in order to keep your mental state, level. Which I think is really the goal for a lot of us, unless you're just like taking like antidepressants and doing all this kind of therapy kind of stuff, which is definitely helpful, and you definitely need to do that if you need it. But just that mindset of what people say versus their actions is, in my opinion, is very, very disconnected. And that's everyday conversations. That's conversations with your mom and dad. That's conversations with your brother and sister, whoever it may happen to be. Watch people's actions and don't necessarily, like, you can hear their words, but also at the same time do this, like, plug it out. Because a lot of times people talk from a place of bravado or a place of pride, or, wherever it comes from. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, here's a quick one. When I was checking into my first fleet unit. It was 3rd Assault Amphibian Battalion. Very proud. It's an Amtrak. We call them assault amphibian officers or amphibious assault vehicles. I was to me, I don't care what anyone says. Without them, there's no Marine Corps. I was beyond proud to be an Amtracker, regardless if I had a good boss, a bad boss. It was just every day. I loved, not kidding, I loved coming to work every day. And I was checking into my unit as a lieutenant, just walking in, and they had the parade deck out there. And it looks like they were about to do a retirement ceremony. There's like only like 2 or 3 people there. And the staff sergeant, he looks at me and he's like, "Hey, sir." And he's like, I was like, hey, and he salutes me. I salute him back. And he's like, "You're that new lieutenant who's checking in." And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Let me give you some advice." And he goes, "I did 20 years in the Marine Corps. And because the last minute, this is supposed to be my retirement ceremony. And apparently there was a CGRR. There was an inspection, like a high level inspection. I'm not sure what you call it in the Army, but there was a large scale inspection that wound up, like happening at the same time as it's a surprise inspection at the same time as his retirement ceremony." And he's like, "I did 20 years in the Marine Corps and this is it." He's like, "Just remember this. You're like, no one is going to care about you when you leave." And it was foreshadowing to what I went through. It was like he cursed me. You have to take care of yourself. I remember hey, my ankle was purple. And you don't need to go to medical. Why not? That's what I never understood about it. Like, if a person's injured, why wouldn't you let the guy? It's not that I'm getting out of duty or anything. Let the guy go to medical. I found like there was just a lot of, it wasn't even jealousy because there's nothing for them to gain out of it. If a guy, breaks his head, yeah, fine, we'll suck it up in the field. But when you get back, not, or just put a split. Don't even put it in your medical jacket. Why not? Because in 20 years, that broken finger, when you realize you can't bend your finger anymore, they're going to say, well, that you probably had that before you got here. Why wouldn't you want one of your Marines to put that in their medical records? So the biggest thing I could say to anyone in the service, whenever you get hurt, make sure it's in your medical record, because you don't know what's going to happen later. You might get out 3 weeks from now or 30 years from now. When your boss says, hey, you don't need to do that, you do it. I mean, again, you'll win, you'll get to go to medical. But at the end of the day, you've made an enemy who controls your career. But for most parts, it's, you have to go to these classes that teach you what to do when you retire. You have to go to these, when your boss, sometimes he doesn't want to let you go because he needs you. Sometimes the boss says, no, he does not, it's not that he doesn't like you. He just needs you. I believe when you come to a certain point, and they say it, but they don't do it. When they come to a certain point of your career and you say, hey, I'm going to retire in 1 year, whatever, maybe it's a 6-month mark or the 1 year mark before your retirement, the Marine Corps needs to put you to the corner and say, hey, go get your ankles fixed, get your knees fixed, go do your out processing, and actually let you do it, because they'll tell you they're doing it, but they don't. Yep. So that, and if they don't, you need to raise the BS flag and say, hey, sir, not to him, maybe his boss, I'm about to retire. There needs to probably be someone who can tell your boss, hey, you need to be quiet. This Marine has done his 20 years. He's getting out. Let him do his out processing without problems. Because what they'll do, they'll let you do it, but then you still got to catch up with all the work. And they'll purposely put more and more work on your plate. And I've seen that happen last minute, like literally right before you retire. Hey, where's that paperwork? You're like, really? You're really gonna do that?
Yeah, and before we jump into the transition part of it, I did want to ask, along your career and maybe even into today, up till today, were there any people that stood out in your mind as like really, really good role models or mentors, maybe that you could point out, like one or two that really, really helped you along your path along the way throughout your career?
There were two. Well, there was so number one, let me start off on the negative aspect. There were some people, one specifically, the one I mentioned before, he was such a horrible commander that I said to myself, as long as I am nothing like him, we're good. Imagine when you're in a unit where it's all of you against the boss. So to this day, when we have a unit reunion, I'm the senior guy invited. The boss is not even invited. and I've been retired since 2017. He's never there. No one speaks his name. He was that bad. So that was like my first. Now, on a good note, I had, we call him Biff, just put it that way. I had a boss. He was a Captain Murray, a big guy, just massive dude. You know, the kind of guy who was probably a bodybuilder in his past life, and is just, he's just thick all over, and he could run. It's just like, how does he run that fast? But his biggest thing that to me that I wanted to emulate, and I did, was that you'd see all these other commanders who tried to know it all, and you can't. When you're the company commander, the battalion commander, you don't know gigahertz and megawatts and fuel consumption. I mean, unless you're a logistician, there's just too much to know. So he would come to a meeting with the battalion commander, and all the other company commanders would be there by themselves. And he would have his staff. And he always brought me with him so I could learn. And he would sit there, and they would ask him a question. How many vehicles do we have up today, Joe? And then he'd just snap his fingers, and then the maintenance guy, oh, we have 15 vehicles up, 2 down, 3 are going into Dermo, 4 are going to here, these are going to get, and he would give the whole spiel. It's like, well, how many, what's your situation with comm? He'd snap his finger, the comm guy would pop up and blah, 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 and just speak, whatever. So I learned, like, don't try to know it all. Don't try to BS everyone. If you don't know it, you don't know it. But you also don't want to look like you don't know it. So at least have the answers right there, and your answers are your Marines. So a commander is only as good as his staff. And more importantly, he is only as good as he knows how to use his staff. So that was how I emulated myself as a commander afterwards. And I thank him for everything. He doesn't even know it to this day. I just took mental notes and said, that guy I want to be like. And it was Joe Murray. The other one, he's a general now, 2-star. He is Savage, now General Savage. He really lean, athletic, could have chose to go the special operations route from my understanding, but he decided to stay infantry. And I just loved his demeanor, how he was, yet he was the most hilarious guy in the world. He had a sense of humor, but he was just like, and it wasn't so much what I saw him do, it's the way he treated me. It was that we would talk and say, we don't like this, but we have to do it. And he understood that. And I've had quite a few other people say, how do you feel about this, D? And this one was actually General Nicholson, or Colonel Nicholson at the time. He was like, hey, D, what do you think about this? And I said, sir, I think we should go left. And I was like, well, here's the reason why I think we should go right. And I'd listen to him. He's like, what do you think now? And I'm like, I still think we should go left. And he's like, okay, let me tell you again why we should go right. And I'd go, he's like, what do you think now? I go, we should still go left. And then finally I go, sir, it's not my job to agree with you or disagree with you. My job, when you ask for my opinion, is to give it to you. And I gave it to you. At the end of the day, my job is to carry out your orders and execute it like it was my own idea. So I don't agree with you, but I am going to do what you say. And he looked at me like, and I loved working with him. I was supposed to work with him again, but unfortunately I couldn't move at that time. So I would say Nicholson, Murray, but Savage I just loved for his mere presence. He was just this, stalwart icon, just iconic, kind of very lean, but he had a sense of humor. But when he laughed, it was like, ha ha ha. Just an absolutely great person. So.
Just a quick giggle laugh, and that's it. Then he's done.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
And with no emotion at all.
Yeah. I do that sometimes, and my wife gets mad at me.
Yeah.
No. That's awesome. So let's jump directly into transition. Let's talk about the last, let's say, year and a half, 2 years, depending on, and I'm looking at it from the perspective of not necessarily the actual going through the process. I definitely want to touch that, but I also want to understand mentally when you started preparing to transition, because I feel like there's a mental preparation that goes on for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then the actual transition starts and you drop your paperwork and you start to do all the things.
Right. Well, that was my last unit. I had about 3.5 years before I retired. And when I walked in, I was treated like I had every venereal disease or communicable contagious disease that you could possibly ever have. The general said basically, like, you're worthless to me. And I was like, what the heck? I had a bunch of people I had worked there before who were like, the second in command was like, I heard you were, really good, blah, blah, blah. But, this is not a retirement community. In other words, we're tired of getting people to come down here to retire, but you're going to retire out of somewhere.
Right.
You're going to retire out of somewhere. So I don't understand what the big deal is. So they gave me to cut it short. They put me in the least glorious job that I could possibly ever do. They started me out in one position actually, which was beneath me, and my boss was doing my old job, and he was a reservist, and he was a great guy, but he had a kid that was about to go to college, and I was supposed to be his replacement. I was told, you're going to do this job and you're going to replace your current boss. And he would come up to me and he's like, D, I need this job. I can't, my kid's going to college. I don't know what to do. And he was very, very worried. And he was a great guy. He didn't intend to do anything malicious towards me or anything like that. But he kind of gave me all these really like menial jobs to do, where it started getting noticed by the command that I wasn't being used properly. And they kept coming up to me, and I was like, what do you want me to do? I'm a major. This guy's a lieutenant colonel. If you want him to make me work, tell him to make me work. I can't tell my boss. And he kept everything to himself. And the issue was that he was a reservist. And I will always say this, that no, this is not a retirement thing. No active duty guy should ever work for a reservist, because I'm guaranteed to stay here for 3, 4, 5 years. That reservist, technically, the better you do, you might be pushing your boss out of a job. So it just doesn't, it shouldn't be that way, if you will. So he left eventually, and his replacement was the same situation, but he was malicious. He just tried to do everything to make me look bad and look like I kept every email. That's my big, always save emails. I know that's not the great story you expected to hear. You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah. So luckily I saved every email, and I kept my nose clean, even though he tried to make me look like I had dirt on my nose. But they gave me the most inglorious job that you could ever give me. No Marines. And I have a great personality. My Marines, I still keep 99% of my friends on Facebook are my Marines. I did a road trip a few years ago from Miami to San Diego and back. Took 30 days. I didn't spend one night in a hotel. Every night was at one of my Marines' floors, my master guns, my driver, my gunner's couch. Didn't make a difference. And that's what I traveled for. So I had this absolutely horrible job. I don't know. It was insulting. It was absolutely insulting to me. But I did it. And as we got closer to my retirement, and, then I'm like, hey, look, I need to get this fixed and that fixed. They just were using it against me. You're just going to retire out of here. You're not going to do any work. We'll give me something to do. You gave me this job, and I had already been prepped for it. I was warned by some of the senior officers that, this is what was going to happen. So again, kept all my notes, and got injured a couple of times during my last, time there. And then I saw something that was absolutely horrible. It goes back to this is a retirement community. Mm-hmm. We had, this is a unit that worked in the Caribbean and South America, Central America. So we had a very high Hispanic Caribbean population in our unit, which is, you don't really see that many minorities in a unit. And a lot of the Hispanic Marines, when they want to retire out of there, because they're from Miami, it's closest thing to home. They either grew up in, maybe New York in a Hispanic neighborhood, or Miami in a Hispanic neighborhood. So they all wanted to retire out there. And one of the individuals there, as they would get closer towards retirement, he would move them just to be malicious. And I called him out on it. And he said, well, all these Marines, all they want to do is retire here. And I pointed out, like, well, if I was, and I don't mean this in a bad way, if I was blonde hair and blue eyed, and my father was a colonel, that means I probably spent some time in my childhood in Quantico, Virginia, which is like the officer breeding ground for the Marine Corps. And he was like, yeah. And then I'd probably, as an officer, I would have spent some time in Quantico, Virginia working. He's like, yeah. And then I would probably spend my senior time there in Quantico, Virginia working. And I'd probably, when I retire, I'd be looking for a job, there to spend with my family, my father, whatever. It's like, yeah, so why is it okay for like yourself and these other individuals to try to go to Quantico and serve and retire, but it's not okay for these Hispanic people to do that? And he was just like, I never thought about it that way. Like it literally opened up his eyes. He didn't realize, what he was doing. And I'm not going to say he changed. I don't know, because I was leaving. I was literally walking out the door that day, and he was just in shock. I mean, you saw the look on his face. He's like, "Oh, wow, I really never thought of it that way." So my last year, I was getting like, you're just constantly getting in, knees fixed. You're trying to go to the same courses that, like, what is that, Lean Six Sigma or whatever that stuff is. Take as many of those courses as you can, whatever is available. Unfortunately, a lot of things were being added and subtracted. They were available and non-available. I really wasn't given the opportunity to go to any of those classes. The only thing that they couldn't fight me on was my medical stuff. The minute I'd go to a course, my exit, whatever those courses, they'd call me right back. They're like, "Oh, we need you over here." And I was like, I walked out of the Marine Corps knowing nothing, absolutely nothing. And it's like, "Well, you attended the 2 weeks of transition." And I was like, "Really? Really? Are you serious?" Yet this guy did, and this guy was able to, and you're going to. And that's why when I called up my old boss, when I saw him, and I told him, "You're going to be doing the same thing, and it's okay for you." And he just kind of, he realized it. I'm not going to say me and him are buddies, but he realized what he was doing to me, and he, it's okay for him to do it. So he kind of just like, kind of just nodded, like maybe he screwed up. No, he's not going to say he's sorry. So like I said, my transition was horrible. There was no transition. My real transition came emotionally. It was going from a team. I've been on a team my whole life. I was a Boy Scout. I was a martial art team, a track team. My Marines, I've always had Marines. So the worst thing for me initially with those 3 years where I really didn't have Marines underneath me to lead, I had like 3 Marines who I see regularly. I talk to them still to this day. I had one over the other night who drives by every time he drives through. He comes over, we barbecue. I'm a pack, animal. I'm a wolf or a dog or whatever. I need to be around my Marines. So seeing that separation coming from, I don't know, like 400, 500 Marines to 3 to none, and this is not a military town. So it's not like you walk by, you're like, "Hey, devil dog, hey, sailor, hey, squid," that you just don't have that here. So the biggest problem, if you're I would say not a combat arms guy, but if you have been a leader of Marine soldiers, you didn't work by yourself. It's going to hit you hard when you step out there and you realize you're not part of a team anymore. They're gone. And your friends will PCS. You might be retiring, and they might be retiring back to their home state. They might be just staying in the Marine Corps or the Army and going to another thing. So your friends that were in the Marine Corps during your last tour may not be there when you retire or shortly afterwards. So that was, absolutely just a humbling experience. Also, when you buy a normal base, if you have a flat tire, you just have to wait. Some soldier is going to stop by and help you out. You don't call AAA. One of your boys is going to hook you up. When you're not by a base and you get a flat tire, no one's coming to save the day. It's all on you. So it's an empty feeling. You know what it is? It's like a breakup. If you've ever been in love and your husband or your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever it is, left, not necessarily on bad terms, just like we're done, and walked out, that's what it's kind of like when you get out of the Marine Corps. You're like, wow. And there's no one to talk to. And it makes it worse. Imagine if your girlfriend was your best friend, and now you've lost your best friend too. Like there's no one to talk to about that. That's deep.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's something that we hear, we meaning myself and Victor, as we do this show, as we continue to do this show. It's something that we hear over and over and over and over again. It's that camaraderie. It's that sense of belonging, having a purpose. Like they all kind of intertwine into the same kind of pot stew. And it really, like, as far as overcoming that, you said basically like the first 3 years you were out, I think is what you had mentioned. You had 3 Marines that were still close with you, like what are the steps that you would, if you had to sit down and write like a playbook or like even a play on the field for, let's say, a football team or something like that, and you're like, this is the play to get to the goalpost, the goalpost being getting through that loss of camaraderie, that loss of purpose, that loss of sense of purpose. What kind of playbook would you write? Like, is there some steps? Is there some method to it?
Oh
Is
yeah,
there some kind of
it's really easy. Number one is keep yourself busy. That's the number one. And whether that's military, and I know it's really funny. Now we're talking about I mentioned breakups. I remember when I was in college, my girlfriend broke up with me, and how did I get over that? Worked out harder, studied harder, just kept my mind preoccupied. Same thing in the Marine Corps. You get out, or the Army, or whatever it is, when you get out, keep yourself busy, because at the end of the day, we still attract each other. You're going to walk into the supermarket or you might be on your motorcycle and you go, hoorah, and you turn around and it's like, oh, you might even bump into a friend who knows a friend of yours. What kept me, I told that road trip kept me sane. It was like, wow. It's like I went through a therapist, it was just like the most unbelievable feeling. The other one is there's still a Marine here or two. I have like two or three. I bumped into one of my close friends. I met him here after I retired. He was a great guy. In fact, he's coming over for dinner with a couple of other buddies of mine. One guy's a firefighter. We may not be in the service together, but we still think alike. And the other guy was Army, believe it or not. So we will find each other. You just have to get out of your house. If you stay home, no one's going to know you. So keep busy, and there'll be that Marine or that soldier in your class. Or go to a bar, go to a restaurant. When you go to the mechanic, one of my mechanics by my dad's place, turns out we were in Iraq together. It's like, hey, what are you doing? You want to grab a beer after this, sir? And I'm like, I can't. I got to drive back to Miami. So we'll find each other. That's the best thing I could say. And just keep in touch. You might, especially with like Facebook and, I don't know, WhatsApp and all this other stuff. If you go to LinkedIn, the people that are going to be like touching base with you are going to be your old Marines from boot camp. Oh my God, I remember him 30 years ago, blah, blah, blah. And that's how I keep getting my list of, Marines and friends and soldiers and, the occasional Zoomie, and stuff like that. So but it's smaller. And then go on a road trip. It's amazing. You'll see how many of your Marines or soldiers, you're still there. They're on your route. Sir, you need to stop by for dinner. Let's go grab a beer when they see you on your trip, where you're going. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Could you actually break down, like dissect your road trip and how it went and how you came up with the idea and like how you executed it and all the back end logistics that you had to probably take care of, wife and kids and all that stuff?
Well, I just graduated culinary school, and it was a dream of mine always to be a chef. And I wanted to go on a road trip before, but I couldn't. I was just too busy. So it was something that I had just pushed to the side. This was like right at the end of COVID, when people were like opening up the stores again, and I just wanted to get out of the house. I've been trapped in my house so long. I told my ex-wife, do me a favor. I had the kids most of the time. During COVID, I had them, I don't know, at least 5 out of every 7 days of the week. So I said, listen, I'll be back in a month, because she was also taking the kids to visit her family. So it was really at the end of the day, she's going to go visit her grandparents and her great grandparents and blah, 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 everything. So it was not really a big deal. So the logistics was pack a bag, get in your car, and just start driving. That's it. And I have a friend in San Diego. He joined the Navy. He was a good friend of mine. I'm kind of like his big brother, if you will. He was out there. He's a surgeon now. And I just started driving. And then I started getting phone calls. Hey, where you at, sir? I heard you're doing a road trip. And I'm like, so I actually spent the first 3 days not even going north. I was zigzagging east and west between college friends and Marines, between Orlando and Tampa. Because I'd go up to Orlando for lunch, and my friend I could do dinner with you, in Tampa, and I would drive the other way and back and forth. It was really, really good. It took me forever just to get out of Florida. And then I just hit I-10, and I just went due west. And, I've driven that route so many times, so I'm quite familiar with with most of the areas. And I just would get a phone call like, where you at, sir? And I'm like, over here, it's like, sir, you need to come on down. And I'm in Louisiana. I'll be in Louisiana in about 5 minutes. And The guy I went to Italy with, I was telling you earlier, he was I think the acting ambassador to Rome. He was going to be at his sister's birthday party in Louisiana. So I met him there, and then I stayed at a Marines for dinner, and then I went, I kept driving and driving and driving. It was, hey, sir, where are you now? I'm in Texas. You need to come up to, where was that? Oh my God, not Arizona, New Mexico, I think it was. And I went into the mountains, and it was just an absolute phenomenal trip. And I was like, I can't visit everyone. If I can't visit you on my way west, I'll visit you on my way back. So it was 30 days. It took me 25 days going west and 5 days going back east, because I had to get back for the 4th of July, because I barbecue. And, if I don't barbecue, my friends don't eat. That's what it comes down to. Right. And I gained so much weight because you're stuck in your car like 9 hours driving a day, and you're just out there, having breakfast with you, lunch with this guy, dinner with this guy, beers with this guy, sleep, wake up at 5 a.m, get on the road, do it again. And, but it was a absolutely phenomenal experience. You don't realize, for me, I knew that my Marines liked me. I knew my Marines respected me. I knew, because we still kept in touch, but to see that, like, hey, sir, I got, one of the greatest things, my translator from Iraq, I stayed at his house. He came to this country with absolutely nothing. And he kind of got hosed when he had no place to live. He's a very religious man. He's Muslim. And he goes, I went to the mosque and I prayed, and a Muslim guy, which is, I know it's a guy who just got out of prison, who found Islam in prison, said, hey, brother, why don't you stay at my place? And then the next thing is like, why don't you try to get a job at the base in Quantico? So you wound up getting a job on base, became a translator. He wound up working for me in Iraq. And I'll never forget, we were doing a mass casualty, and he starts talking like, sir, that is pneumothorax, that is, and I'm like, what? And I look at him, because I was an EMT, and I was like, how do you know this? He's like, oh, I am American citizen, but in Iraq, I am surgeon. I am doctor. I was like, wait a minute, you're a doctor? Are you licensed to treat in Iraq? He's like, yes, I am doctor in Iraq. I'm like, stop translating and start fixing. So we became very, very tight. And his wife is Mexican, I believe. So I got over there, and this is a tearjerker for me. And he says, I get to his house, and his wife comes up and gives me the biggest hug. And she's like, I've never met you before, but me and my kids know every story about you. The guy's told. The guy treated me like a hero. Because what we went through,
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I warned you. I warned you that was tearjerker, But yeah, so his wife was like, couldn't wait to see me. Couldn't wait to meet this guy that her husband's talked all these stories about, Yeah.
Yeah.
So overall, amazing trip. Absolutely amazing trip.
Well, she was right. You are a hero. I mean, it's hard to admit that. It's hard to quantify that in your own mind. But just based on the story you're telling me about the 30-day trip, about the people you've kept in contact with, like that in and of itself speaks to the level of compassion, the level of really good leadership that you've provided over your whole entire service. So she's absolutely right.
Hey, we had a situation like that a while back. I have 3 kids, and my oldest is my clone. My ex-wife refers to my daughter as Erica because she's Civil Air Patrol. She's, she acts like me in just every aspect. I mean, I don't have 3 children. I have a sergeant and 2 other kids. I don't talk to all 3 of them. I go, hey, make sure the dishes are done. And my daughter turns around and says, Marcus, you do the dishes, you do the laundry. Because when I had 3 kids, I was by myself. I'm going crazy, and I did it that way because I wanted to develop her. It's the to segue really quick. I kind of saw the difference between nepotism and what is that? Not breeding. What is it? What's the proper term? when you're getting someone, you're grooming, nepotism and grooming. And some people, nepotism could be looked at as a bad aspect. Grooming is like, there's nothing wrong with grooming. Just say if I'm a general, and when my father was a general, I grew up hearing how my father spoke. I went to boot camp and I aced it because I already knew how to iron my clothing. I knew how to polish my boots and all that other stuff. So I've groomed her to do whatever she wants in life. She doesn't have to join the military, but it is an amazing thing. But we were driving one day, and goes back to the hero thing. And there was I had this big Jeep with giant wheels and everything like that. We used to go bypass traffic because we'd go off road, and there's just mud kicking up everywhere, and everyone's beeping their horn, going, "Yeah!" I did armored vehicles. I can't drive a car. I hate cars. So we're going there, mud spitting up, and then there's this pickup truck, this red pickup truck, and it's a young guy with his girlfriend, and I go, "You're stuck?" And he's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Well, just throw it in 4-wheel drive and go." And he's like, "I don't have 4-wheel drive." I'm like, "What are you?" And I see he's got this rather attractive young lady. I'm like, "I got you, brother." So I back up to him and I said, "Listen, I'm kind of trussed up. I don't want to get in the mud. So you're going to have to get dirty for this one." So I actually had some hitches. We went, butt to butt, and I pulled him out and I said, "Hey man, come on, don't be in a place like this unless you have 4-wheel drive." And then my daughter at the end is like, "Daddy, you're a hero." I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, you helped that guy. And I'm like, "No, baby, I just did the right thing. I've worked with heroes, Daddy just did the right thing." You have to understand the difference between that. Just because I served in the military, and I don't mean to insult you, please forgive me if I do. Just because you're in the military doesn't mean you're a hero. It might have you've done a great thing. You've done the right thing. You might have even done a brave thing. But even heroes will tell you they're not heroes.
Exactly.
I don't think any of my Marines would ever say I was a hero. They might have said I was a badass. They might have said that I did some pretty awesome stuff. But as for heroics, I was brave. But if I go through my military career, the most heroic things that I've ever done in my career was stand up to my boss when I disagreed with him. I've seen guys charge minefields to save their buddies. OF1, I've seen that a bunch of guys, and when they got hit, another group of guys, they didn't care. They didn't care for those guys are heroes.
Yeah, the funny thing about heroes is you'll never hear somebody who shows the traits of a hero, which you just mentioned, just being honest, just showing up, just doing the right thing. Yep. You'll never hear anybody.
No hero will ever say he's a hero.
No, never. But I can say it though, because I'm not you, so I can say whatever.
Okay, no. I'll give you that. All right, there you go.
Oh Lord, no, that's great. Yeah, we had a guy on. I just wanted to actually mention it real quick. We had a gentleman on, Mr. Robert Luna. If anybody's interested, I'll link it up here somewhere in the top. Who's doing a similar kind of trek across the country from Alabama to California to Los Angeles, and he's actually doing it to raise awareness for mental health. We had him on the live stream a few weeks ago. He's probably 2 or 3 weeks into his journey, but he's literally just walking across the entire, from Alabama to Los Angeles, raising awareness for mental health, for veterans, and also putting out the good word and staying at little places along the way. It's kind of like his little pilgrimage, and he's turned it into this whole big thing. So a very similar thing, but it sounds like yours was a little bit less predetermined and you were just kind of winging it and going out there, but it sounds like it went really, really well. And again, that's a testament to your leadership skills and your style of leadership and the respect that you've earned from people over the years.
Much appreciated. Much appreciated.
That's awesome. I love it. All right. Oh yeah, we're doing a podcast. Totally forgot. So let me just touch on this real quick. I want to be able to go back. You said your kids are how old now?
My oldest just turned 14. My son's almost 13. And my youngest just turned 11. Sorry, she's 12. Sorry, 12.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
14,
perfect
13,
age.
11. Sorry, 14, 13, 11. They're all turning. Like my daughter just turned 14. He's about to turn 13. She just turned 11.
Right.
So,
Right. So what I want to do is I want to ask really, it's like a hypothetical kind of outside of the scope of reality, a little esoteric kind of question.
okay.
And with your background, I think you'll enjoy the question and also have a really good answer.
Mm-hmm.
But we tend to get really good answers for this question either way because it's just that kind of a question. I want to be able to set you up on a date with your 16-year-old self that you can just go back in a time machine and meet up with your 16-year-old self. If you could place us in like the place and time where you would have this meeting and, barring like, I'm not saying go back and change the course of your future
Right.
or go back and give some kind of stock advice or anything like that. But if you just had like 30 minutes to sit down with your 16-year-old self and have a chat, where would you be at and what would that chat look like?
Wow. My mom's house at the dinner table. Um, it's I grew up in a 1-bedroom apartment. I slept on the couch growing up. And I would look myself in the eyes and it's a tough one because there's nothing I can tell my old self that, like about, hey, you should do this, because I knew what I wanted. I might give him advice like, if we were able to change time, don't go to this school because you can't afford it, but that, what do you call it? That which does not kill us makes us stronger. If I wasn't struggling so hard at NYU, if I didn't know where my next meal was going to come from, maybe I wouldn't have appreciated a real slice of pizza instead of the pizza crust. You know what I mean? So I would probably keep that quiet, but I would just look at him in the eyes and I go, you have to realize I never thought I would have my own house. I thought I'd be renting my whole life. I never thought I would have this degree of financial comfort that I have now. I would tell myself, look at yourself. I would look at myself in the eyes and say, all of the dreams that you have are going to come true as long as you stick with them. Just keep pursuing them, but you know that already. When I was really young, elementary school, during the summer, I would be, all my friends were in school, they'd go visit their family, their abuelas, in Puerto Rico, back in Italy, whatever, typical New York mix. And I remember just being bored out of your mind. I hated the summers because all my friends were gone. And I'm just so hyperactive. I'm just so much energy. And you just turn on the TV. All the cartoons are over by 9 o'clock. My friends who were there were still sleeping. I'm like, what the heck am I going to do? And then I started watching the cooking shows on PBS, Channel 13. And I remember this guy. He didn't impress me. Bobby Flay. He's a barbecue. Like what man can't barbecue, I used to love the Frugal Gourmet, but he had like this pizzazz. Like he was an ass. Excuse my friend. He was an asshole. But I love that about him, Like he'd be like him and this guy grilling and chilling. They'd be arguing. Like he's like, yo, you touch my steak again, I'm going to break your hands. And I just love that about him. And I remember watching this, all these shows, and I was like, I didn't have the money, neither did my mom, to cook all these meals, but I somehow knew how to cook these recipes. And I would watch them to validate these recipes I had of my own in my mind. I don't know where it came from. Maybe it's a past life or something. I really don't know. And I will never forget, like, man, I want to have my own TV show one day. And then half Italian, love cooking on my own. And then one day I went up against Bobby Flay. Wow. So you got like, once it starts, it doesn't stop. No. But that was a dream I had. My number one dream to this day was I got offered my own shows, prime time. I remember my boss telling me that it was a cute hobby I had. And I told him, it's not a hobby, sir. It's something I love doing. Just crush me. My dad told me when I was a kid, I was 15. Hey, what are you going to do when you go to college? And I said, I want to be a chef. He's like, you're going to be a bum. Because when you're Italian, everyone can cook. He's like, you're going to work at a Denny's and you're going to be a bum. And when everybody can cook, You don't think you can make money out of it? That's crazy. And I just said, okay. So I went pre-med, graduated pre-med, biology major, loved it. And then I started winning local competitions left and right. Would cook for my friends. My friends didn't want to go out to eat anymore. Let's go to Dom's. Let's go to Dom's. Dom's cook better than all the other restaurants out here. And then I went up against him and I won. And I really did win. It wasn't like they let me win because I was in the military. I tasted what he made. It was good, but I kind of stomped on him, if you will. I mean, I filleted Bobby Flay. That's what they said. I filleted Bobby Flay. And then the phone calls and the emails started. And it was all like, hey, if you get out of the Marine Corps, we got a primetime spot for you and this, that. I'm in cookbooks. So I would tell my 16-year-old self, just keep going. I don't have to tell you not to give up. I won't, because it's not in my nature to give up. It never was. But it would be like a reassurance, like, you're going to make it, kid.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, that's.
Sorry.
I warned you.
Yeah, I didn't expect this. Wow.
Man, I'm having a great time. This is
me too.
A really good interview. This is a really good conversation.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Where are we at? We're at an hour. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to drop all my crazy questions about all that stuff. I think we've covered everything from the military side of it, from transitioning, from all that stuff. I'll ask one more quick question. I think we've actually covered a lot of it, so maybe it's just a quick recap, but and then we can just dive into something completely different. But if you got the opportunity to stand in front of a crowd of transitioning service members, could be, getting out after 4 years, getting out after 20 years, and you had like a 20-minute TED Talk kind of time frame.
Yeah.
What would your kind of thesis for that talk be?
Oh, great. I'll tell you right now. That's an easy one. For the past 20, 30, 40 years, you've been doing what the Marine Corps told you to do. Now, you might have wanted to go to the Marine Corps, the Army, whatever it is, and that's great. But you're probably a little bit more financially stable than the average person at this point, right? You have a retirement and stuff like that. Hopefully you have made some good investments along the way. You don't have to go back into the system. You see all these colonels and, lieutenant colonels. What are you going to do when you get out? Oh, I'm going to just throw in a suit and, in a suit and tie and go work back in my old job and make like $150K a year, $200K. And that's great. I mean, that's great money, But when you're in the military, you're comfortable. Your comfort level has been established by like discomfort. Like we're so used to we're like, okay, you're retired. Wait, just send me back to Iraq. It's easier for me. Because we've grown so comfortable with that. Like, challenge yourself. Do the thing you loved. What was the one thing that you really wanted to do while you were in the Marine Corps, before you were in the Marine Corps, the Army, whatever? Why don't you try doing it? You know what my Marines are doing with themselves now? One of my Marines makes tables. He lives in like Iowa. He chops down these giant trees and makes these beautiful wooden tables. One of my Marines for a retirement he's a smith. He made me this giant blade for when I barbecue, and it's curved so I could use it for pizza. It's like a sword, One of my Marines who's going through a very, very rough time, no fault of his own, but he was very depressed, just in a very, very bad place. We were very worried about him. And when you have those experiences, he just makes country music. He actually has a couple of songs that are being sung by, I don't know, country music, like it might be by Clint Black or I don't know, whatever country western singer. He wrote the songs because he's been through such a rough time. And if you look at country music, it's like that song, Would You Like Fries with That? Where the guy is like, his wife took his car, she cheated on him, he's got his kids, and he's working at McDonald's, and there's his truck with her new husband. And, it's like, because the guy went through such, a rough time, he made a song out of it. And you're like, holy cow. So, I have Marines who are smiths and welders and artists and singers and musicians. So my thing is, this is the second half or the third half. This is a new chapter in your life. Why don't you do something that would have made you happy a long time ago? I went to culinary school. I didn't need to go. I've been cooking since I was a kid, but my goal was to be a chef. I wound up getting an injury, unfortunately, with my hand. I, kind of had to put that off to the side. But I'm the happiest guy. Now I have my own Scotch company, because I wanted to pursue something outside of that. I want to do something new. So that would be my speech to everybody.
Nice. That's excellent. Excellent. So yeah, let me try to make this transition here and kind of going off of I'm imagining that it's coming from, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm imagining it's coming from this culinary drive that you had in the back of your mind, this kind of passion for culinary arts and cooking and things in the kitchen of that nature. Did that then lead you down the path to where you're at with Fior today?
Completely. You have to understand that food, when you're Italian, I mean, you're in Italy right now. Food is...
I'm half Italian.
Yeah, same here. I said, don't let the tan fool you. You know what I mean? My real name is Eric Pietro Dominijanni, But when you're Italian, food is not just life, it's religion. Like, you go to church, I go to the kitchen. You have a priest, I have a chef. It's everyone in my family cook. Even the worst cook in my family, if you threw them in the kitchen in a room, they would just tear it up. It's, I just happen to be the best in my family, which is a lot. And to tell you how important, I remember when I joined the Marine Corps, my cousin got married. This is right around Christmas. And I showed up in my dress blues and everyone was blah, blah, blah. Oh my God. He's like, it's so good to see you. My cousin's a lot older than me. It was a great time. And then I get home and we're going to start doing a Christmas dinner just a couple of days later, something like that. My dad is looking at me like, this guy thinks he's a big shot, like, look at this guy. And he's like, hey, Eric, and I was like, yeah, Dad. And he's like, why don't you make it the calamari for dinner, for Christmas dinner? And everyone was like, that's a big deal. You hear these stories like where they have a right to manhood, like, oh, I'm Native American, I had to outrun, a horse, or I had to I had to wrestle a bear with nothing. That's nothing. To cook for my old man and my family, I would have rather wrestled a bear. So I remember I took the calamari, I stuffed it with some shrimp, and I had it, and I made something because my dad's Italian. I'm American. My father will not deviate from a dish. I'm American. We deviate from, recipes all the time.
Everything.
And I'll never forget that the dinner table was just dead quiet. And then I served it, and everyone's just like kind of eating. And my father finally took a bite. He just went. And then everyone started talking. It was like, you're a man. You're now a man, So, and literally at that point, I made I cooked Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter. I kicked my father out of the kitchen a long time ago. So my kids don't eat ice cream unless I make it. I make my own sausage. I make my own meat. I make my own beer. I wound up getting a bug for Scotch. You have to realize that Scotch is an older man's drink, about 35 years, older, usually professional, making X amount of money a year, blah, 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 We don't have to go into the demographics. But I remember having my first taste of Scotch, and that was in California. I'd already just come back from Iraq. I was about to go to Afghanistan. I knew nothing about Scotch. I was a rum guy because I worked in the Caribbean for 3.5 years. I speak pidgin. I talk about rum. No, I know everything you want to say about rum. So it's just second nature. And some guy, I believe the bar was called Bordner's. It's in L.A. And some guy bought me a shot. He was like talking, hey, you guys in the military? And they're like, my buddy was in the military. We're best friends. This guy's out. Our mutual friend was, so it's like, I'm the only active duty guy. Like, yeah, our boy over there. So he's like, yo, let me buy you a drink. Thank you for your service. I took a drink. I almost threw up. It was so horrible. It was like Malort or something. Like, I don't know what it was. It was just absolutely horrible. And I was like, I'm sick of this. I've been in the Marine Corps for like 15 years or 16 years. I'm like, I can't get anything good. Every time you leave base, you ask, let me get a hot dog with no ketchup on it. They give you a hamburger. You ask for pizza with no pineapples and they give you a cheeseburger. You're like, can you guys just get me what I asked for? Like, this is, you get so sad. I'm about to put myself in harm's way again. Can I for once get a haircut that's not crooked? You know what I mean? Just slightly not crooked, like, please. So I'm furious at this point. And we went down to probably Santa Monica or what's that other area called? Huntington Beach. And I walk into a bar. I'm in a bad mood. And I'm usually the DD, the designated driver. And we walk into this spot and we're shifting friends. We meet up with these friends here, these friends here, these friends here. And I'll never forget. I walk up, I'm like, what do you got for rum? And he's like, oh, dude, and he's an Irish, Scottish accent, because the guy turns out he's half Irish, half Scottish. And he's like, oh, we have this and this. And I was like, that's the best rum you have? And he's like, he goes like this. He's like, dude, this is a Scotch bar or a whiskey bar. I was like, what? And I look up and he's like, it's all Scotches from all over. And he's like, what? And I was like, seriously? And I'm like, so I took my Navy Fed red card, threw it on the table, and I said, teach me. And he goes, what? And he goes, teach me. I say, teach me. I'm like, listen, I don't know anything about Scotches or whiskeys or anything like that. I just don't. I'd like to learn though. So just don't rip me off. Just, he's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, just don't rip me off. I just, let's do some tasters. So then he's like, okay, hold on. And he starts putting this. This is Lafroy. This is good with water. And this is good with the little bubblies. And this is good with this. And he goes on and on and on. And this is from Highland. And this is a Speyside. And this is salty. And this is peaty. Don't confuse peaty with smoky because they're different. And he just went on and on and on. And he was so happy. So I got that. Wow. Scotches are really, really good. And I was already about in my 40s, I think, at this point. So maybe late 30s. So I was like, okay. So I took that bug, went back with me, and then I started like a Scotch collection. I had a rum collection previously, but no, it became Scotch, or slowly, and I went to some of the more extremes, and then Talisker and some of the other ones, Ardbeg and things like that. And then I just naturally just tried to create my own. Because I like maybe something smoky and you don't. You might like something peaty and this guy doesn't. So I said, well, when you look at your friends, I have dinner parties at my house every weekend. Tonight I'm doing lamb and duck, believe it or not. And I was like, no, I gotta, maybe I can make something that everyone will appreciate. Because some of these are just, there's no flavor. This one is too much. So I wound up creating a legacy bottle or infinity bottle, which is where you take you make your own blend. You start off with a base and you're like, okay, I have 4 fingers of this as my base. And it would be great if it had a little bit more smoke, and you put 2 fingers of this, and then it's, oh man, it would be so much better if it had, oh, now it's too smoky. So, you know what I mean? And you just go, and it takes months, a year, take however long as it wants. And then I wound up making it. And I guess one of the prouder moments, again, not the proudest moment, but, was cracking it open for my friends the first time. Most of them Marines. It's like, one Marine, one Coastie, one Navy, Submariner, we're all like at my place. And I pour it, and then they're like, we're smoking cigars in my backyard. And then he's like, hey, this is some good juice, bro. And I was like, hey, thanks a lot. He's like, no, bro, this is some good stuff. So I guess the bug became a plague, if you will. And I wound up, long story short, I contacted my buddy, Jim Goldstein from college. We did Kung Fu together. We were in college together in different fraternities. And he used to own, what is that? Hypnotic. His whole family's been in the alcohol industry for years. And I started talking to him like, hey man, my uncle gets his own wine made. He's like, I want 20, my uncle Luciano who lives here. He's like, I want a 22% of cab, 42. He calls up California. They make the mixture as he requests, and they mail it to him. And my old boss was a Colonel Bolano. He makes his own cigars. I want my own wrap. I want my own this. I want my own that. This shape, this length, this width. And they mail it to him. So pretty cool. So I figured maybe I could do that with the Scotch. And he's like, yeah, man, too easy. So we get him he comes there every quarter. He gets the samples. He was actually about to go to Scotland on vacation. And months and months and months passed. I kind of thought that he, drank it all. Just forgot about it. And then I got six cases of it. It was supposed to be nothing more than my house. Actually, sorry. He goes, so what do you think of these 3 samples? And the first, just like in the military, the first one's good. The second one was the best. The third was okay. And I was like, I like the middle one. He's like, yeah, that's the closest they can come to duplicating it. So we went into production. We did 6 cases, and it was just for my house. That's all it was. And those same guys, give or take 1 or 2, they were like, oh my God, this is awesome. And, they wanted to buy a bottle, and I was like, it's not for sale, dude. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, come on, man, let me get a bottle. I'm like, I can't, this is all I have. It's all I got. And they were like, they were the biggest inspiration to me in that aspect. Cause they were like, the next is like, you could sell this juice, bro. You can get this out your house. And I was like, all right. And the next day is like, bro, the other guy, bro, like, so you're going to try to sell that stuff? You need to get it out there. And they wouldn't stop. It was like 48 hours, maybe less, of these guys kicking me in the butt. And I was like, all right. So I called up my buddy again and I asked him if people would buy this. And he's like, yeah. He's like, well, I don't know anything about the Scotch business. I just have a good sense of taste, And he's like, I got you. I think people would buy with the right marketing. And here I am now, made Forbes, a couple of months ago, 6 awards later. But yeah, I always knew I was going to do something, but I thought it was going to be wine. I never, ever thought it was going to be Scotch. I thought I was just going to come up, or the other one was cheese. I always wanted to come up with a Brie blue cheese blend. There you go. It was going to be a Dominijanni cheese or a Dominijanni wine, and it would have been from my house. I never thought it would be out there for sale. So I was going to do something like this. I just didn't expect it to this level.
And as you were going through, like going down this path, once you finally decided to say, okay, let's just figure out what this business looks like, just because I want to dig into the details a little bit. Right. What was like the first, how long have you been doing it now?
A couple of years now. Well, officially we'll say 2 years, unofficially longer. Like there was, cause you had like post-COVID, right. There was huge delays and everything. And then they were still recovering. So we'll just say 2 years is the best way to,
Yeah. So like that first 6 months or first year of business, like right. How did you navigate that? And like, was it hiring a team of people? Did you do it all by yourself? What were some of your first steps?
Yeah, I lucked out. And I lucked out because my business partner is a great friend of mine. We were always good friends. Like, people ask me if like, oh, has your friendship grown? No, it's the same. It's, we still call each other regularly. Just the conversations are, instead of talking about women exclusively, and we're talking about business and, that's the best way I can describe it. We even talk, it's like, hey, put your personal hat on, put your business hat on. So we know like how to transition. But because I had this guy, Jim, he knows the whole business. I mean, again, it's 4 generations in his family. So for me, it was really more of him mentoring me, and he does a great job. At first he's giving me all the questions. He's doing all the work, but he asks me, what do you want to do? Do you want to go left or right? And I would go, well, Jim, you know better than I do. Why don't you tell me what happens if I go left and what happens if I go right? And he'll tell me, and I go, all right, well, Jim, what if we go center mass? And he's like, oh, okay. I never thought about it that way. Let me get back to you. And he's like, so it's kind of like that relationship between a platoon commander, a brand new second lieutenant, and your gunnery sergeant who's got 15 years in, where you sit there and you're the boss. You make the decisions. But at the end of the day, this guy's got all this information that you can't ignore. But he's also been doing it this way for 15 years. He's programmed, or in my buddy's case, 30 years. My buddy Jim, he's been doing it since he got out of college. So reality is, you bring a new idea, a new perspective, a new outlook on something that he's been doing the same way. So I go, I'm not saying we shouldn't go left, Jim, but explain to me why we shouldn't go right. And it's okay. And then we'll talk about it, because it might be you've done it this way 100 times. What if we do it a different way? Oh, and there are some good things about that. So I was lucky. I happen to have a good friend who's my business partner, who's my mentor. I fell on his staff because he had an existing staff, and I kind of, he's my, I guess the best way to, let's put it, he's my CFO. I'm the CEO of my company. He's the CFO of my company, but I use his staff because he owns quite a few other, or he's involved with quite a few other spirits, like Frisky Whiskey and things like that, with Millstone. So it's no big deal when we're almost like brother and sister spirits. So wherever I go, the other one is usually there as well. And we kind of, we key off of each other's success and failures. Like, for example, we have one Frisky Whiskey, which is a flavored whiskey. And a lot of men might find it too sweet or stuff like that. Well, those people who don't like Frisky Whiskey love Fior. And the people who don't like Fior love Frisky Whiskey. So we're always sitting side by side. So when it's a stereotype, when the husband and wife team come up, I offer them the Fior, she offers them the Frisky whiskey, and it's like, oh my God, this is phenomenal. So I am in just an extremely lucky position. It's kind of like that when your son or your daughter is going to school or the military. For example, you're going to the military and you're like, oh, by the way, I'm going to leave you my old car. Here are my old uniforms that are pressed. Here are my old publication manuals. So you're giving them all the tools they need for success. That's what he basically has given me. But at the end of the day, you're the one doing push-ups. You're the one doing pull-ups. So that's the same thing with me.
Yeah, you're the one doing all the work, but it's nice to have that that kind of like starter pack when you're getting moving. Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's exactly what he gave me. He gave me a starter pack and a really good staff.
That's awesome, man. I applaud you on that venture. I'm glad it's going really, really well, and I like to follow the kind of linear progression of the whole. Well, it's not linear. We know that it's
right.
Like this is what it was really. But
here's one for you, based on a previous question when you asked about like how to do a transition. What's the most difficult thing when you're dealing with normal people? It's different than dealing with service members. And forget about my staff. You know, I love my staff, but like, for example, like if you had a Marine paint your house, you know, it's gonna be perfect. Any service members can paint the house perfect. When you hire someone, they might show up on time. They might get it done. They're going to charge you extra and they're going to miss quite a few spots. And that's just the problem we're dealing with. No offense. It's not because you're a civilian. It's just because we are trained to go above and beyond. Where a civilian wants to get paid above and beyond to go above and beyond, you know? So one of the problems I have had with my staff is when I have a great idea, I start texting people at 3:00 in the morning, and I had to tell them, listen, I am going to do crazy crap like this. I'm not expecting you to answer me. This is how I was when I was a company commander. I'm going to tell you, you don't necessarily need to do this, and I'm just passing on information to you. So for the civilian employees, one of them is Air Force, though, I say, when you get a message from me at 3 a.m, I'm not expecting you to answer it right now. I am expecting an answer, eventually. So ignore me, put me on mute at night, put your phone on, but you will get crazy, hey, what if we, got 6 cases and we sent it here instead? I expect an answer Monday morning. I don't need one now. It's Saturday. Go back to sleep. So that's how I deal. That's one of the things I did during my transition or transitioning to working with the local civilian population.
And I just want to ask one kind of additional question to all that. I don't know if you got a chance to participate in the SkillBridge program when you came out of the military, but do you think that it might be a possibility, if you haven't already done it, to get your company registered through SkillBridge, so that maybe somebody in the audience who's getting ready to transition out and they're really as hyped about culinary stuff and spirits as you are would potentially be able to come and work with you?
I have no clue what SkillBridge is.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So let me give you a quick rundown. Yeah. SkillBridge is basically a program set up by the DoD for all military service members. Basically, you have to go through your command, you have to get it approved, get all these stamped signatures on it, and blah blah blah. And hopefully, you're not dealing with the same nonsense that you were dealing with in your last duty station, where everybody's putting up the shield and blocking everything you're trying to do and being a jerk. But basically, if you get approved, you get all the paperwork signed and everything, you can then take up to the last 6 months of your time in service while you're still on active duty and go basically apprentice with a corporation, a company, Microsoft, a Cisco Systems, a Bank of America, things like that. But they also have it available for smaller businesses too, as well. So it's just a matter of linking up with SkillBridge, DoD SkillBridge program, filling out the paperwork. The process is kind of long. I think it could probably be up to 6 months or a year to get that approval. But then once you get that approval, then that makes it available to service members who may have the same passions as you, or may want to understand what you're doing and be able to then spend the last 6 months of their time in service working.
I remember when that program came out. It came out right toward the end, like the last year or 6 months of my career. I tried. They were just, no, you're not going to. Other people would be allowed to. I wouldn't, but I wound up doing it on my own afterwards. I was working in a pizzeria. I was for free, believe it or not. I was working in a pizzeria for free, learning how to make pizza Pizza Johnny's in Miami. He's from Brooklyn, New York. He's a great guy, great pizza, and he, just let me. That's all I want to do is learn. You don't even have to pay me; just teach me. That's it. So, would I do that? Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm not in the financial. My company just doesn't have the capital yet at this point to be able to like start hiring people and stuff like that. I would say I would rather have service members. My company is the first and only veteran-owned Scotch. It's also the first and only Black-owned Scotch, which was it's how I modeled my business. And funny, I just didn't realize it until recently. I didn't have any like veteran employees at the time. We now have Air Force because I fell on his staff, and it really opened my mind. So maybe not SkillBridge. I would love to do it that way as we grow, but I would love to see more minorities, more veterans in my specific spirit label because that's what I stand for. Do you remember late 80s, early 90s? There was a company called FUBU.
Yep.
A lot of people don't know what it stood for us, by us. Okay.
Right.
Now I understand I'm Black, but I'm also Italian. So I'm either Black Italian or I'm half Black, half Italian, or maybe I'm a light, dark skinned Italian or a light skinned Black guy. I'm a New Yorker at the end of the day.
Right.
So there was a day we were not long ago, a few months back, more than a few months back now. We were looking at investments. We were going for our second round of investments. And then I realized, for the past couple of years, my Marines have been calling me up. Hey, sir, we really believe in this. We want to invest in your company. But they couldn't meet the minimum investment, which was substantial. And I was like, wow. So he's like, what do you got? He's like, I can only put like $5,000, maybe $10,000. And that's significantly lower. So I contacted my buddy, Jim. And I said, Jim, why don't we like lower it for like families and friends? And he's like, yeah, sure. We'll cut it in half, and then people will put it in. And, it was like, again, I had some people who put in. I had like a buddy of mine, he's Indian, first brown investor in my company. My brother, he's my half brother, he's half Puerto Rican. So I was like, holy cow, I actually got 2 minority investors. And then I started realizing, I stand, I'm trying to do the forest bias concept. This is what led to it. But I didn't have one veteran investor prior to that. I didn't have one non-white guy investing in my company. And that was odd. Because if you think about stereotypes, demographics, how many minorities, how many veterans have $100,000 to invest in a company? The people that are investing in my company are already millionaires. It's easy to throw in $100,000 or $200,000 if you have millions of dollars, but you can't do that if you only have $50,000 in your bank account. So me and Jim talked about it, and he goes like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to lower the minimum investment to about $5,000 tiers, if you will. I'm going to put one tier for myself. No one could touch it except for my friends and family. We're going to put that off to the side, and they will fall underneath me. And I was like, well, why wouldn't? And I asked him, why don't we have lower investments? And this is for people out there to think. It's like, because if you have $100,000 investment minimum, pretend you have one guy you're talking to. If you have $10,000 minimum investments, you're gonna have to do it with 10 people. And I said, but these are all my friends and family. I talk to them anyway. And he's like, how much money do you think you can get? I'm like, we'll figure it out. In the hour, I got over $100,000 that night, just by calling back people who were interested. That was like a Friday. By like Monday, we had a Tuesday or Wednesday, I think was the next week, we had over like $300,000 of people who wanted to invest in my company. I was like, holy cow. So I looked at it this way. If I am a Black owned or an Italian owned or a veteran owned or a Chinese owned, whatever it is, company, how can I validate being a Black, Italian, veteran, whatever it is, owned company if I don't have Black, Italian, Chinese, veteran investors? So for me, I also need that on my staff. For me, I need that as part of it. And I think that a lot of companies might fall short on that. Forget about alcohol, where, I'm an Italian-owned business. Okay, cool, but you don't have one Italian working back there. How about at least having one?
Everybody in the kitchen's from Ecuador. What the hell? Are you
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's like to me, it's easy to say. It's easy for me to say this is a Black or veteran-owned business. but I don't have one black or veteran, person in my staff or investor. So I had to change that overnight. Boom. And then, I like to stand by. I raised myself to stand by my word. How's that?
That's perfect. Yeah, I think there's I don't want to get into the details of it because I don't know them right off the top of my head. I know there's a friends and family type investment vehicle out there. I know I've encountered it with a couple other business buddies over the years, and they do have things like 5,000. It's a type of share. It's all run through the FCC, so it's legit. You have to have some decent lawyers in place to put the paperwork together. And if you're interested, I can try to look it up and maybe shoot it over to you.
Can we take a break?
Yeah, absolutely.
I need like 30 seconds. That's why.
Yeah. And I'll give you this keyword just to maybe, if you want to jot it down real quick. It's a pre-money valuation SAFE, SAFE.
Oh, yeah. I believe I've heard that before. Yeah, let's keep going.
Yeah. So that's basically where you can, and I don't know if this is part of going on your way to becoming a public company or not, or something like that. Like, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but there's a certain cap. And within that cap, you can have people who are not necessarily accredited investors, but I forget what the term is. Basically, you can set the price to, $5K or $10K.
Yeah,
whatever it is.
Yeah, again, I go underneath my buddy's Jim's umbrella with that, and that's exactly what it was. And when I mentioned it, he was like, "Oh yeah, that's this type of investor." And the only difference we did with that was because just say for X amount of money, you get X percentage of the company. But if you're putting a fraction of that money, what's the reason? What do you care about having 0.01% of a vote? It's pointless. So what we did is we drafted up the paperwork so they fall underneath me, so I get their vote. They all agreed to it because we're all on the same sheet of music. These are my friends, my family. And my old master sergeant, who actually threw in 60 grand right into my company, he says, "Sir, we talk." Skipper, he still calls me, even though I was a major, because he knew me as a captain. And he's like, "Hey, sir," or "Skip Daddy." And he's like, at the end of the day, I know your vote is my vote's your vote. So, I really couldn't care less, And I was like, all right, there you go.
Sounds good.
So, yeah, I'm quite familiar with that. Like I said, every day I learn something new. Whether it's coming from my friends. I say the one thing I bring, I told you that's to the table outside of the Scotch, that's just different than Jim, who's got all those years of experience. And if you add his father's experience with Finlandia, his experience with Hypnotic, and I think his uncle, everyone was somehow involved in the alcohol, importation, exportation, sales and stuff. It's just a new idea, a new product. Just a different way to do business, a different focus. It was a crazy one. It's like, veterans and Scott. There's a lot of veteran-owned companies out there, but there was no veteran-owned Scotch. I didn't even think about it. I never thought about saying, "Hey, this is the world's first veteran-owned Scotch," or American veteran-owned. But people are buying it because it's veteran-owned. And 99.9, because I know that your next question is, of the people who have seen my, how I focus my company and stuff like that, have loved the idea that this is a veteran-owned Scotch. It's for veterans and blah, blah, blah. There's the one guy out there who's a little bit higher ranked than I was, not in my service, who was kind of like, "Oh, yeah, you're just going to use your military background to blah, 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 to get ahead in life after you've retired." And I was like, "Yeah, you're working as a GS-15. You don't think your military background had anything to do with you got that job? Shut up. I'm not marketing, but people are buying my Scotch because my Marines are buying it for two reasons. Because of their loyalty to me. It's a good product. Three reasons, I guess. But their loyalty to me was one. They said, "Sir, I would have bought it just because of you. I bought it, but I would have, if it sucked, I would have never bought it again." Okay, I bought it again because it's got a good price. I bought it again because it tastes good, because it's a veteran product. And so my guys are actually fulfilling my focus of, my target audience. Scotches are 35-year-old males. Remember, I told you before, they're usually professionals, et cetera, et cetera. So, but the thing is, by the time 35 years old is that age where you're kind of drinking Scotch, but by my age, or, when you're in your 40s or 50s, you probably have that Scotch or that whiskey or that rum that you exclusively drink. I've had people come up to me, they're like, "Wow, this is an amazing Scotch," and they still went there and got their black label, You're like, but because it's a loyalty base.
Yep.
My Marines, I'm establishing their loyalty base to my Scotch. I never thought about it that way. But I'm like, holy cow, I'm seeing it right now. That's my 4th bottle. All I drink is Fior now. I'm like, like
Yep.
patting myself
Nice.
on the back. I did a good job, Yeah, so that's just a great feeling to have, to be supported. And then obviously being black owned, when you go to areas like Detroit, and it's like or where we're at, Atlanta, Georgia. It's a black-owned restaurant. We primarily deal with we try to focus on black-owned liquors, so to give us a chance because we don't have 200 years of a background, to compete with a company that's been there for a while. And they're like, it's amazing when you walk into a restaurant and hey, that's my Scotch. That's my Scotch behind on the wall. It was like, wow, I did it. It's different when you see it in a magazine because, it's in a magazine. There's a picture with me, a picture in here. There's some guy going, this is one of the best Scotches I've tasted. That's great. And I thank everyone for that. But when you see it, like not even in a liquor store, when you see it in a restaurant, oh, wow, I can't tell you how amazing that made me feel. So,
yeah. Before we, because I'm going to start to wrap it up real quick, but before we do that, let me remind you for your mic, if you could pull it just a little bit. It was clipping just a little bit, but you're fine.
There we are.
I just want to let you know. So if we continue, right. Right. I'm your father.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to do that.
It's, what was I going to say? It's kind of like putting out that first single of an album and hearing it on the radio for the first time, and you've never produced an album before that. I think that's kind of what it reminds me of.
I'll tell you what it actually reminded me of, and I'll never forget this day. Back to the being on the Food Network. It was for anyone who might be interested. It was season 1, episode 5, Throw Down with Bobby Flay. I did steak. And I remember being in a restaurant. I haven't even seen the show yet. And I was at my favorite restaurant in town, which it was a good restaurant, but I really didn't have any other choice. It's the only restaurant, but it was a good one. And I remember eating, and everyone is looking at me. And you have to understand, I have the nicest tan in the neighborhood, if you understand what I'm getting at. And I have been, I've had some people who didn't appreciate my presence in some of these places. So I start noticing people are looking at me. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be weird. They're older people, so I was like, why is everyone looking at me? I've never seen a black guy order a drink at a bar, food at, a cheeseburger. I can't remember what I ordered. And then one of the old ladies just points up and I look up and I'm on TV. It's the episode. I'm going up against Bobby Flay. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, there I am. And I was like, I could not believe it. It was like, wow, I did it. I made it. Just like with my Scotch. So, that back to the 16-year-old thing, it's like, just follow your dreams. Just stay on this path. You got it, brother, So that was just a great thing.
Yeah, that's incredible. I wish I could figure out a way to tell people that you don't have to do these grandiose, mega awesome things. They feel amazing, but there's little things in life that you can also appreciate that also happen along the way that you can also then kind of throw your hands up. And I have a problem with that personally. Just to be open and honest, I have a real serious issue. I don't know what it is, but I have a real serious issue with being overly excited about too much of anything. I'm pretty level for the most part. And I do that for a number of reasons. One is just so I can maintain my temper and maintain my kind of balance in life. But, there's a lot of moments, including the big ones, so that you're actually prepping yourself for the big moments. So when the big moments come, you can, throw the fists in the air and start screaming about it.
Yeah, it's the with the question you asked me before, what would I tell a bunch of retirees? And just follow your dream, man. You don't have to. You made the money. I mean, the problem is money is addictive. If you have a lot of money, you want to make more money. And if you have more money, you want to make more money because a lot of times your lifestyle changes, which requires you to make more money and blah, 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 blah. We know that. But once you have to go at one point, do I have enough? Okay, if my house is paid for, I have a retirement, my kids are already in college. and I make more than enough to sustain myself. Why do you keep, unless you love your job? A lot of people don't love their post-retirement jobs. They just fall, I need something to do. And they fall into that, just get back online. And, all you did was get out of line and walk to the next line. And you're standing right there doing the same thing. And it's like, well, why don't you do something else? Well, I was a general and, I was like, well, then, you make a lot of money as a retired. Why don't you make pizza? You talk about pizza all the time. My old boss, I'll never forget him. General Crowley, loved working with him. He's a pilot for, civilian pilot for, I think, United or Delta. I can't remember which airline it is. And he used to love wine. I can't remember. It was a red wine. I think it was Malbecs, Malbecs. And I do kind of have contact with him. But if I could see him right now, General John Crowley, I would say, I'm not sure what he's doing with himself or anything. I'm like, why don't you make your own Malbec? I'd buy it. You're my old boss. Marines would buy it because you're a general. You love Malbecs. You would not produce crap because you're a Marine and your love for Malbecs is so much that you would make sure that people would be like, wow, that's a Crowley Malbec. No. So, but granted, he's not in the system, like most other people, but why don't you do that? Bring some love out there. Bring some love to your house. Bring some love outside. My buddy's a pastor. He got out of the Marine Corps and stuff like that. It's freaking phenomenal. He's a very religious guy, and he pursued divinity and all that other stuff. That was what his passion was. Do it. You don't have to stay in the same line. Just do something you love now.
Yeah, that's the idea. That is definitely the idea. And again, to each his own. You choose your own path, but you definitely do have a lot more options, generally speaking, when you retire, when you transition out after 20 plus years of military service. Like, you've got a little bit of a safety net. So, it's been really amazing talking with you, Eric. I hope that we can continue to stay in contact after this.
Absolutely.
I just think you're a really cool dude, and I like some of the things that you like, the culinary stuff. And I'm not a Scotch guy, but I'm definitely a wine guy, and I'm definitely here in Italy and wine country. So if you ever decide you want to come over for a visit, let me know before you get here. And,
I was supposed to be there this summer. I'm just not going to make it this year.
Yeah,
believe it or not, little known fact: there's a place in Italy called Barga, probably named after Barca, as in Hamilcar or Hadruspal. What's the name? The Carthaginians. Anyway, the name of that town is important because it's got like the highest Scottish population of all of Italy. Because I guess they were sending Italian workers down to Scotland years ago to work, so they have a direct line from Italy, like a phone line. There's this one phone booth, so they can talk to their husbands while they were in Scotland working. So then you have this one region in Scotland with all these Italians, and one region in Italy with all these Scottish people. Because they interbred after a while. My thing for when I hear someone say, hey, I'm not a Scotch person, and I'm not trying to plug myself. It's just to make you think. Because forget about my Scotch. Scotches are very extreme in flavor. Like I said, if you look at something like Talisker, to some people, it tastes like you're sucking on a charcoal briquette. To other people, oh my God, it tastes like swamp water. You're right. You're absolutely right. Because some of those Scotches are very, very intense. They are, just super far left or right or up or down on the spectrum. But at the end of the day, there are blends. And, blends, people look down on blends. Oh my God. Well, that's what is normal. That was the norm purists. Originally. Yeah, exactly. We've gone around, we've done a 180 where it was originally it was blends were the bomb and then everything was too intense. And now it's the other way around. I would challenge you with this. Find a Scotch of your choice. Just try it, because a Scotch is not something you drink. A Scotch is an event. Yeah. And I tell people a Scotch is like a cigar to a cigarette, or a bath to a shower. If you're a man, or you come back, we just use stereotypes. You're a man, you need your nicotine fix. You just go outside, and then there's nothing relaxing really about it. You'd have your cigarette, and then you dip inside. But a cigar, you sit back, you have your rum or your glass of wine. You have your friends and family around. It's an event to smoke a cigar. For a woman, we would say it's the equivalent of a bath to a shower. You take a shower, you're in and out. You just got to take a quick shower, get your hair clean, and get out, dried off. But a bath, you pulled out your wine, you got your TV, you got your girlfriends on the phone, you're relaxing, you're eating chocolate-covered strawberries and all the other stuff, and you're watching The Notebook for the 50th time, you know? That's the other one. So a scotch is the same thing, because when you get exposed to scotch, a man gets exposed to scotch because when your grandfather died, your father bought you, hey, this is for Gramps, for Paw, or whatever it is. Or, hey, the general's like, oh, your father's like, hey, you graduated law school or medical school. The general's like, hey, congratulations, lieutenants, whatever it is. Or you got promoted to captain, So you get exposed to scotches during a very important, significant event, good or bad. You're either mourning or celebrating when you drink your first scotch. So my thing is, you're not a scotch drinker, and neither was I. I was a rum drinker. In fact, I didn't even really drink. I was really more of like a beer with a cheeseburger, a glass of wine with dinner. I never really was a social drinker until very, very late in life. It's called marriage. But at the end of the day, I would challenge you to find a scotch. You may not like this one, you may not like that one, but find a blend, and you might actually appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I've had scotch before. I just my favorite drink in the world is like a really dark red wine, usually from Avila, or if it's a Shiraz or something like that, like dark, spicy red wines.
I'm a Sangiovese guy myself. I like that nice, salty, sandy taste. That's the only way I can describe it. Like I could, I could taste it. I can't describe the flavor, but yeah. And I love the mouthy feel of a good Shiraz. When you take a sip and you don't even want to drink it. It's like gummy. It's jammy. Yeah.
Doing this the whole time.
And I just keep, I just stare. It's like in between my lips and my teeth. Okay, we're done. Absolutely love them. So,
is there anything that we haven't covered that we might have skimmed over, or anything that you would like to bring up before we wrap this thing up?
I would like to say, if anyone is interested, if I can plug myself for this one, if anyone is interested in, purchasing my scotch, tasting it, it's you can find it at www.fiorscotch.com. That's FIOR Scotch.com. We do give back to the veteran community. I give back to Operation Gratitude, because they took care of me and my Marines for quite a few deployments, and they still are doing that. They take care of active duty Marines, and they take care of veterans as well. It's just something that I'm very, very proud of, and it's something I just want to share with people. And for those people who do know me, they know I'm not just saying that. I created this so I can share it with my friends and my family. Never intended to be sold. It was just apparently good enough to be sold, So yeah, that's pretty much it.
And if anybody wanted to reach out to you beyond that, beyond your business link,
or you could just do Eric D, ERIC D, so Echo Romeo India Charlie Delta at fiorscotch.com.
Awesome.
Eric D at fiorscotch.com.
Nice. I did want to tap on one real quick thing, and then I'll let you go and let you have the rest of your day back. For the SkillBridge thing, you don't as far as I know, you don't necessarily, basically when they set you up with the SkillBridge person, the person comes to hang out with you, like they're getting paid still, their active duty paycheck. You don't pay them. They're basically like an intern or
they get paid by the military, not the. I remember that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no guarantee of a job at the end of that either, depending on where you're sitting.
They just have to show up every day. It's like that's their accountability formation, is showing up to work. And I completely forgot about that. Yes, I remember now.
I think it would be awesome if there was a SkillBridge program and I could do it still. That would be awesome. Yeah,
actually, now that you've opened my mind, I will hit up my buddy about that, because one of our employees is a reserve Air Force, Zumi, and her husband is active duty, I believe. I'm not sure how many years he has, and that would be actually great to do something like that. So you learn everything. You learn something new every day. So much appreciated for that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that would be a really good opportunity for a lot of folks.
If you can send me the link, if you have any links to that, please send it to me. I will definitely use that. Okay.
Yep. Cool, man. Hey, I thank you very much for your time. I thank you for coming on here, sharing your story with us. Hopefully this is a good way to give your children's children a small little time capsule of great granddad sometime in the future.
Yeah.
And also helping the veterans out there, you and the audience out there as well. I hope you got something from it. So
Absolutely.
if you're looking for us, you can find us online everywhere. We're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, we're on
Right.
YouTube, we're everywhere. And also on Reads Across America on Wednesday evenings. For those of you who are listening to our radio show there, it's just the podcast on the radio broadcasted. So yeah, man, thank you for your time.
And thank you
Appreciate
for
having
having
you.
me. Take care.
We'll talk to y'all later.
Out here. Reach out anytime you want.
I will, man. Thank you.